Good evening. Oh, sorry. I'm sleep deprived, y'all. So I'm just giving y'all some warnings. I might say some things I don't have to say, and I'm going to say them again if I have to. But, I hate doing these shows when I'm not properly rested because, sometimes it might get away from me. But anyway, at least I'm motivated to keep this, to not be long, but I must be strong. So I just want to jump in with both feet. This evening, I want to talk about a few things. I want to talk about police, racism, bias, and genocidal tactics in Chicago and what that means. I also want to talk about being woke, and then we'll get right into the Q&A. So I'm going to start with talking about being woke, right? Because, and the reason I want to talk about being woke is, the American right-wing conservative, and as Claude Anderson told us over 20 years ago, conservative means racist. Whenever you hear the word conservative, you should hear racist, because conservatism is nothing more than an individual's desire to maintain the status quo. And the status quo is racist. Conservatism has nothing to do with family values, Judeo-Christian values, the work ethic, Protestant work ethic. It has absolutely nothing to do with merits. In fact, if you look at the conservative political climate, or if you look at conservative individuals, the only thing they ever do consistently is to be servants of or members of the power elite and engage in the most reactionary, regressive policies and values systems. So conservatism is racism. There is no such thing as a black conservative because blacks have nothing to conserve. So if you identify yourself as a black conservative, and a lot of black people are suckers and they believe, well, I'm a conservative because I believe marriage is a man and a woman, or I'm a conservative because I believe you should work hard for what you earn. If you are a black conservative, you're either stupid or you're a race traitor. There are no other black conservatives. Conservatism is racism because conservatism is a person who has a staunch belief in the status quo, who is willing to do whatever it takes to support the status quo. And finally, a conservative is a racist because the status quo is racism, is racist, is white hegemony. So let's not be confused. That's what conservatism means. White people, white individuals can't get up anymore in the popular media, in the popular discourse, and say, I am a racist. There was a time when an individual could get up and say, segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation yesterday, where a white person could get up and say, yes, I support the empire. The sun never sets on the empire. There are certain terms and certain political ideologies that white people at one time across the globe could openly support. Even being a so-called white supremacist, or a what they call in the class of civilizations, I support Western in culture, that's no longer. So they had to come up with code words. We know the code words for us. When they say inner city or urban or thug, we know that is code word for black and or other derogatory terms related to black people. Well, conservatism is a dog whistle and a code word for white nationalists, white aggressors, white hegemons. So, and I hate that I have to beat this home. So, the scroll is, oh my goodness, thank you. Man, that's the wrong scroll. I was supposed to be doing this, trying to shake y'all down for money. But shout out, I'm happy to put up Who Stole the Soul and support Bernard's book. So go get that book, and whatever you got left over, send it to me. Independent black media. Anyway, so that's a brief rant about what conservatism is. Now, I will move on to say conservatives have the most regressive values, right? So anytime anybody tries to assert something good, conservatives are psychopathic. They are racist. They are Urugu. They have what Dr. Bobby E. Wright called the psychopathic racial personality. Therefore, if a racist person knows in their heart, I'm a piece of shit. And if you know a shitty person personally, if you know a piece of shit, shitty people tend to project, meaning that shitty people have two psychological conditions. Number one, they know they're bad people, but they also believe that they are superior people, right? So if you know you're a bad person, a predatory person, a person who exploits that, so you have to do whatever mental gymnastics to convince yourself that you are not a bad person, but you also believe you're superior. So if I'm a bad person and I'm a superior specimen, anybody else who claims not to be bad, who claims not to be selfish, who claims not to be self-centered, who claims to be sincere in the values that they hold is also a bad person. So they always think that anyone that claims to want to do good for their fellow man, to contribute to their fellow man, to equally distribute resources amongst their fellow man, they always hold those people in contempt and believe that those people are being insincere or lying. So what does all this have to do with woke? And one example is that to say that you are awakened, to say that you are a person who favors honesty and academia and facts and evidence, they're like, no, I'm a person who only uses information to be self-serving. I am a white aggressor, or I am an Uncle Tom handkerchief head sellout who serves the white aggressor for a pat on the head and, maybe whatever other trinkets and rewards that come with serving the systems and institutions of white domination. So you say, well, this person can't be sincere in what they want to do. This person can't be better than me. They're not more moral than me, and I'm immoral. So everybody's immoral. So what they do is when you say you're woke, and now let's just put that aside about conservatism. Conservatives, as I have defined them and described them, hate wokeness. What is wokeness? Let me tell you about what wokeness is. Wokeness in the United States, in the Western African diaspora, the Western political context, is a short version of awakening. Europeans had this thing called the Great Awakening. Their Great Awakening is basically, I'm not even going to get into that because that's too much history, but go Google the Great Awakening amongst Western culture. But African people had our own, and we use their language or their historical descriptors to describe phenomenons or situation within the Black community. This is often doesn't apply for a myriad of reasons. What is that? I'm sorry, there's something on my screen because I got the screen share thing up and it's not coming up. Anyway. So a lot of times when we say to use their words to describe use their historical terms to describe our phenomenon, because it's often twisted. Take, for example, the Renaissance. The European Renaissance means rebirth. And it is a time where Europeans were in the Dark Ages and Europeans rediscovered the intellectual and cultural heritage of their Greco-Roman ancestors. They went from being in the dark, they were locked out from their culture, they were locked out from their imperial legacy. So when they reasserted themselves culturally, intellectually, philosophically, militarily on the world stage, they called that a rebirth. So when Africans had a cultural and artistic emergence, we called it the Harlem Renaissance or the Black Renaissance, because the Harlem Renaissance actually occurred in Chicago. It's occurred in like St. Louis, Kansas City with the cultural explosion of the blues and jazz. It occurred, across. It was really, but it was called the Harlem Renaissance because Harlem was kind of like how now Atlanta is like the home of hip hop or home of Black arts, even though you can go anywhere in the country in any Black community and find hip hop and music. So anyway, we called that a Renaissance, but it was not a rebirth. It was not a true Renaissance, because a true Renaissance would be Africans reawakening and reconnecting with our African philosophy, our African ideology, our African struggle, and reasserting our political and economic sovereignty. The Renaissance is not limited to just the arts or even culture. And we had no original awakening in the West. So it was not really a rebirth. It was an initial birthing. It was an initial coming out. So it is the same thing for awakening. The white awakening was basically white people embracing religious fervor. It was actually a reactionary, regressive thing. Whereas the African awakening was a revolutionary, intellectual thing. Africans lived in the United States for over 2 centuries, where it was illegal for us to engage in our intellectual and cultural pursuits, to read, to write, to determine our own identities, and to have any type of substantive connection to our ancestors. During the Reconstruction, we thought that we could erase the color barriers within established and erase the racial and color and phenotypical hierarchy established in this nation, and we could be full-fledged American citizens. We joined state senates, we joined the U.S. Congress, we had Black people entering into the intellectual and political and even economic life of post-Civil War America. They called that the Reconstruction era. And after that, Europeans regrouped. The Northern whites made a deal with Southern whites that said, basically, we're going to allow you to re-enslave Black people, but you can't do it under chattel slave conditions. But you can create a new Jim Crow system, the Black Code. You can re-enslave them through incarceration. You can re-enslave them through economic exploitation of the sharecropper system, and you can reestablish the racial hierarchy. So after over 200 years of slavery, we went through another century, from the late 1860s to the late 1960s, of neo-slavery under Jim Crow and legal segregation. After that time, Africans had yet another political awakening, where not only when we came out of it that time, not only we didn't fall for the trick to say, well, getting our rights, getting constitutional amendments and concessions from the government is not enough. We are not going to be allowed to be American citizens. We are not going to be allowed to be full and equal and respected participants in what is called the democratic experiment of constitutional democracy dominated by white people. So Africans began to say, we are Africans. It went from color, from really chattel, boy, you a boy, to and girls being called inhuman, subhuman, to being called colored, Negro, to being called Black, to being called Afro-American, to African-American, to being African. So that evolution of Africans, intellectually, culturally, politically, ideologically, distancing ourselves from the United States, distancing ourselves from imperialism, capitalism, the Protestant work ethic, was our awakening. And so the Black people who dwelled in Black communities, who wore African garbs, who studied African history, who shunned Western manifestations of the divine, many of them began to follow Ifa, began to follow the Kemetic system of cultivation, tree of life, began to erect shrines to their ancestral acknowledgement, ancestral worship. Those were the awakened Africans. And the people who were outside of what I called the cultural community, the African cultural community, we began to rediscover our African lineage and begin to try to build towards and use our African our status as members of the African diaspora as the political rally point. The Black Books movement, the African radical scholars, those were the awakened Black people. And the larger community started calling us woke or awakened. This goes all the way back to the 60s. All the way back to the 60s. And so that's what woke was. That's what woke is to this day. A Black person who is a descendant of a population of Africans who had every element of themselves stripped away. Their religion, their culture, their language, their history, their biological or racial lineage. And as the Dr. Khalid Muhammad, it's like many of us, we even lost our minds, he would say. The Africans who embarked on the deliberate, conscious effort to recapture what we lost in the Ma'afa were considered the awakened Africans. That's what woke was. And just like the cultural appropriation, the white liberals stole that, because white liberals would come to our protests, would come to our drum circles, would come to us and want to smoke weed with us and kick it with us, and even some sincerely would donate their resources, or like in recent put their bodies on the line, or as we falsely say or inaccurately say, use their privilege. You know, Black people would be out protesting and the police would show up with tear gas and gas masks and billy clubs, and white people would form a barrier between, thinking their white flesh was somehow a defensive shield. They started adopting that language. And so the Fox News and all the other right-wing media circles started saying, oh, woke. And it's a bad thing because white people really believe, now you can't be enlightened. This can't be a sincere thing. The only thing that people sincerely do is represent their enlightened self-interest. The only way to be enlightened, if it's you selfishly and individually pursue your own desires. And if your desires are anything other than the accumulation of fiat, you are an insincere individual. And so be it. And what disturbs me in all this history and all this work is that now we have so-called conscious Black people using woke as a pejorative or as a dismissive or mockery term. Oh, you so woke. I'm sick of all this wokeness. And they did the same thing with nationalism, Black nationalism. Oh, militancy. Militancy became a bad word. Nationalism became a bad word. Political correctness. They distort what political correctness was. They distort these terms, and soon as the right wing begins to distort these terms, we run away from them. So I am woke, I am conscious, I am awakened. And I just wish we, if for no other reason than the basic, most fundamental manifestations of self-determination, would stop letting them do this. You know, somebody says, well, I want freedom and justice for all men. I want a strong social safety net. I want single payer health care. I want housing reform and low income housing. You're a bleeding heart liberal. They don't like to argue against you on the merits. They don't like to argue against you on the merits. So if you come up and say, well, I endorse these particular policies or these particular reforms, they can't say, well, I don't want people to have health care. I don't want schools to be funded equally so that all children get opportunity. So they were like, oh, you're a bleeding heart liberal. You're a commie, pinko commie. This system is as effective in ideological psychological, and linguistic warfare as it is in military warfare. And we let them snatch words and concepts from our mouth, from our heart. Well, you know, I'm just like, I'm a black man. And then some black person went and looked up the definition of black in the dictionary, and white is angelic, and black. We ain't black no more because white folks redefine what blackness is. Now we can't be woke no more. But here's the problem with that. Any other terms we adopt, they'll simply demonize those. And instead of just standing on our values, standing on our mission, standing on our own lexicon, we're going to be hopping from term to term, hopping from concept to concept. And a lot of you conscious, you know, I talked to some conscious people that I respect that was like, oh, you supposed to be woke? Oh, I hate that word woke. Since when? Since why? Since where? Same thing happened with Hotep. Same thing happened with Hotep. So all I'm saying is, this is intellectual warfare. This is cultural warfare. In fact, Dale Jones informed us that 95% of warfare is cultural. And if you can't win the cultural fights, or as the Pentagon calls it, hearts and minds, what do you think they mean when they say hearts and minds? That's your culture. And if the Pentagon cannot capture the hearts and minds of the people, there's no way to win a military campaign. The only thing you can do if you fail to win the hearts and minds of the people is you can delay your loss, but there's no way to win. And by delay the loss, I mean in Afghanistan. Took them 20 years to lose that war, but they lost their asses off when Afghanistan was illiterate herdsmen. Same thing in Vietnam. But if someone invades your country, you could have a nuclear bomb. But if Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, and you get invaded by imperialist Christians, there's no way you can fucking beat them. How do I know? Look at South Africa. South Africa had a nuke. South Africa had a nuke, and one of the most most rapidly developing economy on the African continent in the 1994 when Mandela took power, between 94 and 96. And the first thing that when you come under imperialism, if you're going to fight imperialism, what's the first thing you must do? Look at the successful revolutionaries. They have what is called a cultural revolution. A cultural revolution is as important as a political and military campaign. In every population that failed at culture, they lost at military. Every single one, without exception. Everyone that was successful, the Haitian Revolution, they abandoned Jesus Christ. They abandoned the colonial mentality. They called on the African ancestors. They rediscovered the drum. They rediscovered Ogun and Shango. And we got black people today that would look at an African, oh, you ain't never been to Africa. What you talking about? The Haitians were woke as fuck. Every ancestor we respect, every ancestor that we pour libation to, I can't even say that anymore. I was about to say something that I know wasn't true. I was attending a gathering of African intellectuals, and when it came time to pour libations to the ancestors, somebody poured libation to Kobe Bryant. And some of y'all listening to me might think that, oh yeah, he's in it. So I can't even say. And I tell y'all all the time, I went to a gathering of black intellectual. Every African in that room had been to the continent. I was the only black person there who never visited the motherland. Every African in there had on African garb and drums, and somebody poured libations to Jesus Christ, and nobody batted an eyebrow. So I'll just say, the ancestors that we should be pouring libations to, all of them were woke as fuck. And here we are in 2022 running away from the concept of woke, from the terminology of woke. So they got our minds. And if you can control minds, you can control behinds, as Bobby Wright would say in his high pitch. If you control minds, you control behinds. If they can snatch terminology out of our mouth, if they can extract meaning and dictate meaning in our minds, shout out to everybody who's woke. You should strive to be woke. You should strive to sustain your wokeness. And every time a white person comes and like, oh, this woke, all this wokeness, say, fuck off, fuck you. Yeah, I'm woke. Any term you don't like, I'm going to be that. Dready, I'm a dread. Dreadlocks. So be woke. Stop disparaging woke. And any other terminology, concepts, or names we want to give ourselves, God damn it, they mean what we say they mean. Fuck what Fox News said. Fuck what the Republican Party says. Fuck what these liberals who allow the right wing and the conservatives to dominate the narrative. And I'm saying this because there are so many people I respect out here like, oh, these woke. Oh, she thinks she's so woke. Using woke as a pejorative. We let them take Hotep. We let them take Hotep. We even let them take radical. Black people will walk the streets like, I'm a radical. I'm a radical. Now, oh, radical, that means you're crazy. That's all I'm going to say on it. If we can't retake a term, if we can't maintain a term, how are we going to maintain territory in a revolution? How are we going to maintain a continent? How are we going to maintain the very integrity of our people if we can't even hold on to a term? It's time to start fighting this war on all fronts. And if we can't fight the war on the cultural and intellectual fronts, you think you're going to be ready for the military front? Moving on. Lori Lightfoot on our necks. Today, in the city of Chicago, there was a new general inspector elected to office. So this is going to be a lot. So y'all just going to have to bear with me. This woman, Deborah Witzberg, is now and I'm moving on to another subject. We off that woke thing. And I'm just going to try to tie this all in together. This woman has been appointed by the black lesbian mayor of Chicago. And the fact that she's black, lesbian, and a woman, she was so you see on her LinkedIn that she's good government, police reform, and if y'all can see the cursor, police reform and criminal justice. She works and now she runs the office of Inspector General for the city of Chicago, right? Take a good look at her because she's gonna help us, y'all. She's the woman that's supposed to get the police off our backs. She was just elected because the previous inspector, where's that white boy? Joe, where you at, Joe? My pages is running from me. So anyway, the previous inspector, did I navigate away? Oh, here. Okay. Should I pull it up? Do y'all even care? It is. Anyway, the previous inspector, I have to pull it up again. Joe Ferguson. The previous inspector left office, and I'm about to tell y'all why. Where is he? I want y'all to just look at these people because these are the people that are going to help us. These are the good white folks. Anyway, I'll just pull up images so y'all can see what he looked like. This is the guy that old girl is replacing. Deborah's replacing this guy. Number one bullshit guy. Joe Ferguson. He was the general, the inspector general. Now, in Chicago, the position of the inspector general is to produce audits. They have no authority. They can't implement policy. They can't hire, fire. All they do is collect available data, compile that data, and make reports. And the purpose of that is for city corruption. For a long time, you all know about Chicago corruption. We all know about, the mafioso legacy going all the way back to the what they call it, Prohibition era, right? And so for all this time, we have an inspector general. And I like to look at the reports because they basically tell you who's dirty and who's not. This guy, Joe, served under Rahm Emanuel. Lori Lightfoot kept him on deck, right? And when she came on deck, the first thing she did was take that office and aim it at the city council, the alderman. And he wanted, because Lori Lightfoot ran on a platform. Y'all know what Lori Lightfoot? Let me just pull up Lori. I know she shows up. I'm sure everybody know what old Lori Lightfoot looked like because she shows up in a lot of memes and stuff. But I ain't gonna make no comments about memes or nothing because now apparently in the Black community it is appropriate to put your hands on people who make comments about how people look. So I'll never do that again because don't slap me. Lord of mercy. If you don't like what I have to say, please don't put your hands on me. But anyway, the reason I make a comment about her gender, her race, and her sexuality is because Lori Lightfoot has what I say the trifecta, the holy trinity of oppression. She has an intersection of the holy trinity of oppression. She is Black in a racist society. She is a woman in a sexist society. And she is a lesbian in a homophobic society, in a Judeo-Christian homophobic society. I call that compounding oppression. Like me, I am a man. There is no male oppression. And I know y'all brothers like to think it is. There's no male oppression in this society. Being a male is an advantage. I'm sorry. I know if you in the menism movement, just get at me offline and so I can explain to you by how none of your problems are a byproduct of you being a man. This is a heteronormative society, meaning I can't be oppressed because of my gender identity or my sexuality, because I am straighter than 6 o'clock, as Grand Poopa said. I'm straight. And not only am I straight, heterosexual, gender conforming man, I'm not even into whips and chains and ball gags. I'm what they call vanilla straight. Let me stop for it. She come knock on the door because she don't want me telling too much business. My wife is a little bit more private than I am. So anyway, see, I manifesto saying she looked like Beetlejuice. See, you're gonna get slapped. Lori Lightfoot woman gonna come slap you, and she looked like she could slap harder than Will. You better stop. We slapping people now for words, for opinions, for making fun of people's appearance. But I digress. So my oppression stems from racial and racist oppression. If I could overcome racism, I'd be straight. Because if racism gets dealt with, I'm a male, heterosexual in America. I would be straight if not for racism. But if we cured racism tomorrow and all other things remain the same, Lori Lightfoot would still be a member of two persecuted groups. There is gender-based oppression, and it manifests, if you want to understand women, the plight of women in America. Because I know we have a problem because white women are racist. So we think white women, we don't like to talk about the sexism of America because we think that we might accidentally say something sympathetic about these Karens out here. And I understand that. But there's a chapter in the book of, and so, if you want it mansplained to you, there's a chapter in a book called, there's one book called the Women of Africa, Roots of Oppression. And a lot of times when I talk about these, there's this book here, and I know y'all probably gonna get mad at me. This is my copy. That's so little. But I actually saw this book, and someone recommended this book to me, and I'm like, I ain't reading about African women, a book about Black women, but it's actually a pretty good book. It's a pretty good book. So, Women of Africa, Roots of Oppression. And then there's another book I want to share with you if you want, because I know when I say, for some reason, people be wanting to debate me when I say, their sexism is real. Misogyny is real as fuck. And there is misandry. Misandry exists. There are women out here who advocate that we should abort all male babies. There are women out here who say that testosterone is dangerous and we should give men injections to reduce their level of testosterone. But the caveat is those people don't hold institutional power. So when you're dealing with a group who is dealing with biases and discrimination against them based on people who hold views against them, who hold institutional power. Racists in this country hold institutional power. Racists in this country hold institutional power. Homophobes control the most powerful institution in the United States, arguably, the church, the various churches. Sexists hold institutional power in Hollywood, in the government, in the arts, in the media, in the industry. But what you might call radical feminists or fringe feminists, none of them hold power. None of them. You can't point any office, any institution, any industry where women who have those views, the misandrists, hold institutional power. If you want to find the misandrists, you got to go find half-naked women burning sage in the forest. That's where they dwell, doing spells, casting spells. That's where those women are. So you can't go and say, if a woman comes to you and says, well, sexism is horrible, and she points to men on the Supreme Court who are trying to take away her rights, and then you were like, well, oh yeah, you sexism. What about that crazy woman on Twitter who wants to castrate all men? Is she on the Supreme Court? Is she advancing legislation? Does she have any controlling stock in any of the companies that dominate the economy? So I hate I have to explain this stuff, but I don't know. There's another book that I'm sure everyone knows, but Women, Roots of Africa. That's a decent book. I'll put it back up. I can't really pronounce the name because it's an Italian, Ruffalo. And here's the thing. She's talking about the colonial oppression. She's not talking about pre-colonial Africa. She's talking about colonial Africa. She's talking about the gender roles and the relationships and the status of African women under colonialism, and how colonialism has impacted and how it dominates relationships, gender relationship or male-female relationship, and the status of women in the economy and politics of Africa from the colonial era forward. It's a good book. But another book, which I think is easier to access. I don't know. My copy, a lot of books I got 20, 30 years ago. So, and people are like, where you get that book? And I'm like, the bookstore is closed because we don't support them enough. Just like the Bro.Diallo show going to go away for the same reasons, but I digress. This book has a chapter. I wonder if I could pull it. What if I put in the chapter? This book has a chapter in it called The Intimately Oppressed. And I think, oh, here it is. Chapter 6 in this book. The People's History of the United States. I'm sure we all know this book. This book has a chapter, chapter 6, called The Intimately Oppressed, which talks about the legal, the legislated, cultural, religious, and social repression of women in the United States. So it's there. And I know, and I am not saying this in sympathetic, not saying we should go out with the bra burners. I'm not saying y'all should join the should have voted for Hillary. No, I ain't saying none of that, because most of the women's movements, is not for liberation. Most women's movements in the United States, feminist women's movement, white feminists as people call them, but I think feminism, I don't think it's white feminist. I just think is white women trying to get their cut, because white woman has been a loyal ally in the systems and institutions of white domination. The white woman has been the most loyal ally to white men. But white men have not been a good ally to white women, but that is white folks' business. And in fact, one of the worst things that could happen for us is that under white hegemony, there becomes harmony between white women and white men. If Hillary had become president, there would have been a global bloodbath we have never seen before. Why? Because Hillary was not less racist than Trump, but Hillary was a lot more competent than Trump. Hillary had a lot more international connections and a lot more international status amongst the elite than Trump had. I'm not saying Trump election was a good thing, and I would have never voted for Trump to save me from Hillary, and I would have never voted for Hillary to save me from Trump, just like I didn't vote for Joe Biden to save me. I don't vote for saviors. I vote for platforms. So I vote for the politician that I sincerely wants to win, even if they don't have a chance of winning, because this is not gambling. You don't vote to see who's going for the person, try to pick the person who's going to win. That's gambling. Engaging in politics means you vote for the platform that you support. But anyway, I digress. I'm saying all that to say, women are oppressed in this system for no other reason than that they are women. And that even includes even trans women or effeminate men. So, one of the worst things a man can do is have feminine characteristics. And in fact, when you go into prisons where there are no women, the men who can be reduced to the status of women are repressed. So even when men don't have any women around to oppress, they reduce other men to the status of hoes, bitches, punks, sissies, and then heap oppression onto them. So what more evidence do you need that there is gender-based oppression in a system, that even when there are no women around, men get turned into women in order to repress them? And if you like, there's this one really good movie called South Central, and a dude was about to be raped. I don't know why I said it was a really good movie. I said a really mediocre movie, but I enjoyed it. I'm a connoisseur of hood fiction or hood movies. But this movie right here, South Central, and this main character was about to be raped in prison, and he was rescued. And one of the reasons that the men who rescued him said that he shouldn't be raped is because he's a man. And you don't rape men in jail. You rape something other than a man. So anyway, so Lightfoot is black. I don't think I have to go into depth to explain to you that there is racial oppression against people of African descent, of the African phenotype. There is women's oppression, and there is LGBTQ oppression. And I know if you listen to Dr. Umar, you would think that gays are dominating the world. Gays run everything. And it's kind of funny, because in the 70s, during the blaxploitation era, when every corporation, after the civil rights movement was civil rights reforms, voting rights reforms came, every corporation, every movie studio, everybody was like, we got to have something black. Black is what's hot in the streets right now. And there was an explosion in black sitcoms, black-led sitcoms. There were always black people in media. You go back and look at Little Rascal, Amos and Andy. So in the 60s and 70s, there was an explosion in the visibility of black people. And white people said, everywhere I look, blacks are everywhere. Blacks are taking over. They got black people on every television show. They got black people everywhere all the time. Oh, I'm so sick of black, and everything's got to be black. Can't even say anything against black. Can't say color. They're changing their name. They're marching in the streets. They got parades. They got holidays And it verbatim in the civil rights movement, racial integration, white people who were accustomed to the Jim Crow status quo were saying the exact same thing to that heterosexual people who grew up in, including myself, in the heteronormative status quo, saying the exact same thing. Even your president, y'all president, he's the president, said his school, because of busing and integration, his school was going to become a jungle. And he didn't want his school to become a jungle. And now we don't want schools to become a haven for gays or whatever, a burlesque show. And these same fears, it's really wild to me. But I can't even say it's wild. I fully understand it because I was once a participant. I was once a person who had those fears way back in the 90s. I remember the very first time in 1992, I went to the Village because that's where all the fly shop was. The Silver Room, you can get the flyest mixtapes. I was really into wearing that silver jewelry. I wanted cowrie shells and Girbaud jeans. You know, a fitted cap. Back then, the Negro Leagues, I wanted a Cuban X giant cap. And, you know, there was two places you can go for the flyest hip-hop gear. That was Fulton Mall. And 40 Acres and a Mule was there. Or you could go to the Village. But there's the East Village and the West Village. And one side of the Village was the gay side. And I remember I was walked across that line that nobody told me. People didn't tell me that if I went to the Village, I could be turned into a gay man. Like Umar, because seeing gay stuff turns you gay, because they don't want gays in cartoons and stuff. And Umar's creating a whole school. So seeing gay stuff could turn you gay. I crossed, and this is growing up I grew up, I tell you all the time, I grew up in what was called the buckle of the Bible Belt. It's not just the Bible Belt. It is the heart of America, Missouri. I literally grew up just a few miles away from the Missouri-Kansas border. And my family been straddling that Missouri-Kansas borderline since Jim Crow, since the 1930s, right? But anyway, and I went and saw a full-size billboard advertising a cruise. And it was a gay cruise. It was right in that park where what was that riot? I can't believe the Stonewall riots. I was in the park where the Stonewall riot memorial is now. It wasn't there back then. People didn't know about Stonewall like that. But I crossed and I saw a giant billboard. And I think it was for Fire Island, a cruise to Fire Island. And it had two men embracing, two shirtless, muscular men embracing. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm in Babylon. Fire burn, bong dong, ba boom, bye bye. What the blood clot? What this? Right? Yeah, they was high as hell. But, you know, I knew the spot. I knew the spot. And as you go to Delancey Street, they got everything bootleg clothing, bootleg electronics, bootleg purses. Presto, I know Girbaud jeans, but I had it like that, son. I wasn't from Marcy, but I lived relatively close to the Marcy projects on Eastern Parkway. So, you know, I had my hustle. I'm still spending money from 88. Anyway, I'm talking to the comments. Sorry if you're confused. So I saw that and I'm like, wow, this is Babylon. Boom, bye, bye. And so all I'm saying is I understand. You know, that's why, you know, I was talking to a friend of mine who is a member of the LGBTQAI community, a vocal member. And I was telling her, you know, she was like, I don't explain myself to these homophobes and these people. I don't deal with them. And I don't explain to them. Because I had asked her because there was a debate. And they were having a debate about the gay agenda, I guess. And they asked me to come and represent the gays. And I'm like, for what? I'm not gay. So I said to the cat, maybe you should invite an actual member of that community. Maybe find a trans woman or man, or find a gay person, or a asexual, intersex person to come and argue for. And he said, I don't know any. And I said, fine. So I asked, because, you know, some of my best friends, like me and Dave Chappelle, some of my best friends are gay, you know, when you want to be homophobic. And some of justifies his transphobia by saying one of my best friends was a transphobe. It's just crazy. But anyway, I asked her about it and she said, I don't do it. But I told her, I always engage with people because, when I was homophobic, and I made a whole thing. You can go search a video saying I am a victim of the gay rights, gay agenda. Yeah, I made a video called I am a victim of the gay agenda, and basically talking about, the roots of my own personal homophobia. And then I wasn't just homophobic, I was phobic against the entire alphabet. I was a dedicated student. Everything that the Irritated Genie put out, I read or watched it. Everything that every time Imalamu Baruti produced a book, I was reading. I was there. I had 2 sons. And my son was born in New York City. And I'm like, so anyway, I digress. All I'm saying that is Lori Lightfoot is an intersection. She is the Holy Trinity trifecta. The only way she could be any more oppressed is if she was a member, if she was maybe disabled, if she was an immigrant, especially, there's some other intersections. Those aren't the only points of oppression or oppressive intersections. But she's not, I don't know. I don't think she's disabled. I don't know. I don't know her medical history, but if she is, if she was an immigrant or undocumented person, if she was not English as her first language, it's English as a, so there are other intersecting oppressions. If she was poor, there's poor oppression against poor people. So, these are all intersecting oppressions. And the fallacy is, if someone comes from a state of oppression, we try to go out and support when a black person, a black business, when a black woman, when a black LGBT, people celebrate because they were like, these are people who understand oppression because they have lived under some of and deal with the daily frustrations that come with being a member of an oppressed group. So we think when they get in power, they carry that experience of being oppressed with them. So a black female lesbian mayor, she knows oppression better than me. And I do nothing but study oppression and injustices. My undergrad in political science, my graduate degree in public policy, all I did was look at oppression, institutional repression, I know oppression. But I could sit and study oppression for another 50 years and still not have the depth of oppression that a gay woman, lesbian could have. She could see more oppression than I could in 50 academic journals just walking to the grocery store and back in the hood. So that's what I want to talk about, how they use that to manipulate us, right? But that is a fallacy. Me being a black man, that's what we started off with. Since the black men, at first, all the positions of going to Congress, business, the black men who got into positions, and we thought, look at that black man. He's a prime minister in a post-colonial African country. Look at that, the first black CEO. We're on our way to having our first team owner, the first black owner of a record label. And we saw all these black men in positions of power and then turn around and found out they were just as corrupt, had the same capacity and willingness for corruption and exploitation as the white people who put them in that position or the white people who preceded them. So we was like, well, man, where they had this nonsense, well, he's a man. He's a man. So what do you expect? Toxic. So then now we're seeing women billionaires. Rihanna. Y'all ever see that Saturday Night Live skit with Tiffany Haddish? Rihanna. Go look it up. What's his name? Boo Boo Jeffries. I'm sorry. Just bring a little levity to your life. Oh, shoot. Boo Boo Jeffries. Just go Google Boo Boo Jeffries. And Rihanna. So you look at Rihanna, you look at what's the old girl? Beyonce. We see these women raising up into status, and They got sweatshops. They cracking the whip in Indonesia and other third world countries. We see gay people in positions of authority. Gender non-conforming people in positions of authority. And they're just as corrupt, just as capitalist. If they're not black, just as racist, just as reactionary, just as repressive. So we got to stop falling for that. Now, that's the setup. Now I just want to talk about, now let me just run this story down so we can get to the Q&A and I can go to bed. Okay, so I'm about to hustle through this, right? Bear with me. And if you don't get it, this dude is the old Chicago Inspector General. This is Joe Ferguson. Joe Ferguson oversaw a report. First, he did a report on the, where am I at? Let me put my little self in the corner. I don't want y'all to forget about me. Here I am. Hi. So he was working on a report for 3 years, evaluating the police, studying police abuse, police corruption, police biases, right? And all he did was collect all the data, the police data. So the report that he put out is just what the police said. And the police only tell a fraction of what they do. They don't tell it all. So this guy was working on that. Lori Lightfoot said, we're going to have a good relationship. But as he was developing his report, him and Lori Lightfoot started beefing and falling out before the report became public, because the report just came out, I think like the 1st of March, early this year, it started leaking out. Here's him and here's Lori. Look at this. If looks could kill you with a dead long time. If looks are kill you a dead long time. Look how she's looking at him. That is not affection. Look at that. You would think she'd be looking at him. You know how they talk about that look. But here's the caveat. This white man is the guy we need to root for. And for this one reason. He was producing a scathing report that condemns and exposed the crime and corruption of the Chicago Police Department. This woman, who was elected, if you know anything about her election, she replaced a man by the name of Rahm Emanuel. The reason Rahm Emanuel did not run for office was because he had been exposed covering up police corruption and police homicide. And this woman ran on reform. And there was a time when she was on a hot mic and she called the head of the policemen's union an idiot. Let me see. Let me see if they caught her swearing. Catch. She uses there was a hot mic where she was caught, and I said this was staged. She called the head of the Fraternal Order of Police a clown. I actually have an account for the Chicago Tribune. She called the head of police, but I don't want to log in. I don't feel like it. But I do have, it didn't ask me for my login. But she was caught on a hot mic calling the FOP a clown. Oh, okay. And I believe that was staged. Put on your tinfoil hats. I always thought she doesn't think the FOP, the head of the FOP, is a clown. She needed some credentials because she's a prosecutor. That's why I say she police. If you watch The Wire, she police. Remember when the undercover female cop was caught up in the drug sting and all that, and the shootout and crossfire? And the people were like, oh, she police. And that dude was like, oh. Anyway, the meme that came from that. She police. And I said, they want to pretend like she's anti-police because as soon as she got in the office, this woman, this lesbian, this black person started banging hard for the police. And if nobody shouldn't hate the police more than black people. After black people, LGBTQAI people should hate the cops. In fact, the gay rights movement was a protest against police abuse. Police kicking in gay clubs, abusing and extorting people from their community. Women as much? I don't know. Well, white women love the police. So the hatred of police and women, you got to be specific in what race. right? So anyway, there's this white man. And why was Lori looking at that white man? It says right here. This is why Lori was mad looking at that white man with daggers. Can you read that? This is, oh, I'm going to lose my place. Let me read. Lori Lightfoot and Joe Ferguson quickly found themselves at odds over several issues, most focusing on the city's lagging efforts to overhaul the police department in the wake of McDonald's murder and a Department of Justice investigation that found Chicago police officers routinely violated constitutional rights of Black and Latino Chicagoans. So if I tell you, I didn't navigate it away. If I tell you that, let me get a picture of them together, that two powerful, prominent politicians are fighting over the lag in police reform. Two prominent politicians were fighting over the failure and suppressing investigations into police corruption. Who would you automatically say, judging books by covers, who is the person that is causing the lag? Who is the person defending the corrupt officers? And who is the person trying to expose corrupt officers? It was Lori Lightfoot, the sister who has the compounding oppression, who is trying to preserve the oppression. It is Joe Ferguson, and nothing makes me madder than having to say something good about white folks. White people come to me all the time. You don't like whites. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm keep done trying to tell you that my got the hookup. Holla if you hear me. I'm assuming I'm back. I went away for a while because I'm just exposing too many truths. So anyway, we got a new person because this thing came out. Where's the other thing? What in the world? Where's the thing? What was it? Okay. All right. Things are getting mixed up. I don't know why y'all keep going away. Do we have audio now? Can somebody tell me if you can hear me? Can y'all hear me? Okay, good. Holla if you hear me. Anyway, here's the report. You can find it PDF. Here's the report right now. Here go right here. Report on race and ethnic bias disparities in the Chicago Police Department. Department's use of force. City of Chicago Inspector General. It was actually Joe Ferguson who spearheaded it, but because Joe Ferguson got fired, well, they don't fire people. They asked him to resign. And so this thing is just information. I think it's like 70 pages. I kind of jumped around on it. It's 74 pages. But you can find it for free. You can download it. You just got to sign up. It came out March 1st, 2020. Lori Lightfoot knew this thing was coming out, right? And she didn't like it. I'm sure this is just speculation on my part, having worked on political campaigns, having studied politics and political science, having gotten a degree with honors in political science. Lori Lightfoot wanted to repress this. And she told the dude, slow roll this, hold it back to the election, woo, woo, woo. She told him to do whatever political dirt. And he's like, I'm not doing that for you. I'm not falling on my sword. We already saw one political dynasty brought down in Chicago. The Rahm Emanuel got killed before it started because they were repressing information that the police had and on the police abuses. So he said, I'm not doing it. So Lori's like, fine, if you won't do it, I'll find somebody who would. It's a 3-year study. all data collected from the police about what police self-snitching. And like I said, this thing is horrible. So if what the police say about themselves is bad, can you imagine what the really real, what really real? Is it real, son? Is it really real? And so Lori Lightfoot, when it came out, said, I have no comment at this time. And she went about handpicking her own person. Lori Lightfoot expected to appoint Deborah Witzberg to be Chicago's Inspector General, city's top watchdog. So that white woman going to be protecting us from the police and telling us what the police is doing that ain't right. That little white woman. So y'all keep Deborah in your prayers. And so she didn't have shit to say. Lori Lightfoot didn't have she knew about this report. In fact, she knew about the report before the report was even started because she worked in the criminal justice system. She was a prosecutor. She's a political insider. And so when it came out, she was like, well, am I going to review it? It took me. This woman who got readers. I wish I had a reader. I wish I had a staff. It's just me here. It's just me. The whole BroDiallo media empire is just me. Even when you come and join my Patreon and I send you something, I'm sitting here making these today, made by my hand. Can you see it? I make these things, and the people that support me becoming my black. I sitting here pressing these, and then I got to go to the post office and send them off. Oh, I'm really proud of this one. Robert F. Williams, he's upside down, but you can see I got a little package. Didn't I tell y'all I'm not from Marcy, son? I got packets like a dope boy. I'm slanging revolution. I got this Panther button, a traditional Panther button. Gil Scott Heron. I'm really proud of this one. Dr. Bobby E. Wright. I got this real cool. I don't know if you can see this on camera. This little Adinkra symbols. If you're just into designs and shapes, I got some traditional African color. Anyway, like I said, holla at your boy. I'm gonna give me a trench coat and line the inner pockets and walk up to people. See how long before I get tackled or shot. Walking up to people, opening a trench coat. But anyway, Lori Lightfoot, this report came on. She got a whole staff of people, and it took her to the 25th to release a statement, right? So she got with the chief of police or the police superintendent. They got weird names for everything in Chicago. They call them superintendents, inspector generals. They just got weird names for stuff. Like the county prosecutor is called like the county administrator. It just got weird names for shit. But anyway, she released a statement. Here's the statement. Not about to read it because she don't say shit. Joint statement, Mary Lori Lightfoot, CPD, Superintendent David O'Brown, another black man, and Attorney General Kwame Ruru, another black man, on new consent decree stipulation. And in this thing, they're talking about what they're going to do. And basically, only thing they got for us is we're going to train the police more training, more sensitivity training, more training them on how not to choke somebody to death. And by the time you need training on not choking somebody to death, then you can go to the mayor's office of the mayor, chicago.gov, click on the mayor and government, and just find your way to it. But you just go to chicago.gov, in their own words. I'm not about to read nothing from this because I don't want to spit on my microphone or spit on the screen. It's just a thing saying they're reformed. And so you can go look that up. I want to show y'all something else. Now, this is kind of messing up when I pull up these PDFs, but I just want to show one little section. This is a report out of Harvard, right? Come look at this. Somebody come look at this. Yet hundreds of studies dating back to the 1930s suggest that anti-bias training doesn't reduce bias, alter behavior, or change the workplace. This is a Harvard study. Okay? This is the big brain white folks. Why doesn't diversity training work? Frank Doba, Alexandria Khalid, two white folks. This is white folks. This ain't a crazy militant Diallo. So anybody as educated and exposed as Lori Lightfoot, she got an LD. This came out of Harvard. Let's read it one more time. Because all these corporations, all these police departments telling us they're going to give training. Oh, every time there's a racist incident, training. Hundreds of studies dating back to the 1930s suggest that anti-bias training doesn't reduce bias, alter behavior, or change the workplace. In fact, if you read this study, which I'm not going to do, maybe I'll put, but this is a Harvard study, right? And I'll just put the name up in case you want to go. Hey, when you listen to the Bro.Diallo broadcast, bring a note and pad, because I know I'm bad. Sometimes I'll put the links in the description, but I don't remember. Like I said, this is a one-man band. Uncommon Sense, Why Doesn't Diversity Training Work? The Challenge of Industry and Academia. Please look at that. Please look at that. Look it up. Read it. So the next time your public official, the next time your supervisor, the next time any industry comes out and says, well, due to this racist incident, we're going to have training. Training makes people hostile as fuck. I would tell y'all the secret to what really does change behavior in institutions. But then I think I'll start a not-for-profit and charge $1 million to go and tell people basic common shits. How do we get police? Like, oh, it's so mysterious. How do we get police to stop killing and harassing black people? So maybe I'll put the link to that up. But anyway, did I even say what they said in the study? Oh, that's about her search. But Lori Lightfoot, what's really insulting is Lori Lightfoot lied. But anyway, what's in the study basically? What we already know. If you black on planet Earth, you ain't got even black. Black Chicagoans are more likely to be stopped and searched. Officers more likely to use force against black Chicagoans. And force means closed fist strike, open palm strike, tasering, physical detainment, from basically grabbing you, choking you up, various holds, less than lethal weapons, any of that. They do all of that more than white Chicagoans. And they knew, the people who put this out knew this is our jobs. We're going to get fired. It's one of the most comprehensive. But like when I was reading it, I was kind of rolling my eyes like, man, I ain't got time. I could be playing Outriders on Xbox because everything that's in there is what we already know. It's the same shit. So it wasn't even an expose. When I was like, I didn't even talk about it when it first came out because I didn't know about the background shit with Lori trying to suppress it, Lori firing the man who was responsible for it. I didn't know about that. And so she came out and made a statement, and the two top cops, so let me just point this out. We got a black mayor and we got two black men. The superintendent, he the chief of the police, the top cop in this city. And his first officer, Officer Eric Carter, and we got two black men running the police department, and we got a black woman running the city government. While this is going on, Lori Lightfoot was like, well, I have to look at the report and get back to y'all. And then so they asked this brother right here, the superintendent, David O'Neill. They was like, so what do you think about this report? And he was like, oh, we're going to reform. First of all, he said, we're making plenty of progress. And then he said, we're going to make reforms. And we're about to teach them how not to kill black people. We're about to teach them to be sensitive. We're going to teach them about their own implicit and unconscious bias. More training. That's what he offered. That's what he offered. He didn't say anything about firing cops, instituting new. But anyway, he offered more training. But I can't even get mad at him because this is Eddie Johnson. This was the black man who ran the Chicago Police Department. He got on the police department 1 full year before that study was implemented. And when they said, well, Eddie Johnson, what's up with all this racism in the Chicago Police Department? He was like, I've been a cop for 30 years and I haven't seen evidence of police racism. I haven't seen any evidence of what you're talking about, sir. Excuse me, sir. How dare you interrupt my tap dancing and shuffling to ask me such absurdities? Ain't no such thing. Ain't no way. Ain't no how the Chicago Police Department is racist. And his own police department turned against him. He said something about Trump, and the majority of the police department in this blue city were not only Republicans, but they're fascist Republicans. And so now this guy did a little better. He acknowledged that there's an issue of racism and police bias and abuse, but he's going to implement reforms, which means he ain't going to do a goddamn thing about it. Black faces in high places. Do not adopt the illusion that if you want to see what he look, you want to get a closer look at him. This dude, he looked like he would ring the bell if he saw Harriet creeping around the plantation. So that's that. I'm not going to go into details. You know, black people are more frequently stopped by 10 times. Not like, 2/5 of a percentage, 10 times more likely to be stopped. Black people accounted for almost 80% of the stops, and black men only make up like 8%. And this isn't just on the south side where I live, the predominantly black areas. This is on the north side. The black people who do their work, who got good credit and moved to the north side, moved to the Gold Coast, the striving black, Lori Lightfoot can't even protect the other upper crust Negroes. She can't even protect her own peers of the upper crust Uncle Tom Negroes. They all over. There is no sanctuary in this entire city from police harassment and police abuse. And I could at least, when I read the report, and I'm like, damn, they even getting them good black folks and them Bentley driving, Rolls Royce driving, some of them fraternity, sorority Negroes on the north side, downtown, high-rise, penthouse Negroes, even getting put in headlocks by these pigs. Damn. You know, we out here getting Will Smith slaps, even though every time they do the studies, even though white people are stopped less, white people are more likely to have contraband, whether that is illegal drugs or weapons, what some of the police, the fraternal order and the overtly racist elements of the police department, the policemen's union, and the fraternal order of police, they say, well, we do blacks more because blacks commit more crimes. And we all know more aggressive policing does not equal less crime. So if you are a police officer and you want to reduce crime and you're utilizing more aggressive police department, what you are doing is saying, you live in a crime-ravaged neighborhood. Why don't you enjoy a sprinkling, a topping? You got crime-ridden fudge, crime-ridden ice cream, homicide ice cream, violent assault bananas, and I'm going to put a sprinkling of police repression on top of that. It doesn't work. So if you are a superintendent or if you're a police officer and saying, well, this area is crime-ridden, I'm about to bust some heads, and you know head busting. I'm back. I'm sorry. My thing is glitchy. You know, shout out to everybody. This mic is donated by one of my listeners. This camera was donated by a friend of mine. Shout out to everybody that gave me everything. So when I complain about the equipment, not that I don't appreciate it. It's just it's getting old. So anyway, where was I? So I don't know where the thing cut off. Saying all that to say, I don't even know where I was. So that's basically it. So people want to ask me about these black people, black Supreme Court justices and all that. The only solution that's going to come for black people is grassroots struggle, is bottom up grassroots struggle. There will be no top down. Lori Lightfoot is not going to govern us to freedom. Will Smith is not going to slap us to freedom and to security. We need grassroots mass organization, bottom up grassroots, working class and poor people struggle. Those are the only demographics that have ever brought any level of justice, have ever won any concessions from our oppressors, that have any potential for liberating us in the long term. Stop celebrating, stop supporting black people. When you see a black person of stature, and I don't care if they're in the entertainment industry, whether they're in the corporate world, or whether they are in government, forget about their race, their gender identity. Don't even listen to their background. Who cares? It doesn't matter if they came from Marcy Projects. We have to look at their ideology. We have to look at their track record. We have to look at their allegiances, formal and informal allegiances. We need our own scorecard to determine who we will celebrate. individual black progress and achievement has no correlation to collective black empowerment. That has been severed, if it ever existed. The tie between black individual achievement and black collective empowerment has been severed. Dr. Amos Wilson said, black people's elevation in this society has no correlation. Black people's individual elevation in this society has no correlation to our collective betterment. In fact, and I hate to say this, but Dr. Amos Wilson identified over 3 decades ago that black individual ascension in the system often has a negative impact on black people's collective betterment and insecurity. And he went on to say, the more black lawyers, black judges that we have, more black policemen we have, the more black corrections officers we have, the more black people are abused and forced into the criminal justice system. Dr. Amos Wilson said the expansion of the number of black physicians directly keeps pace with the further ravaging of black epidemics of chronic disease and premature death. The more proliferation of black people with power in the entertainment industry has a direct correlation to the depth and depravity of black music in terms of it being anti-African propaganda that not only dehumanizes us, that does not in any way recognize or advance our interest. So I'm not telling y'all to stop sympathizing with black people who strive and achieve in this system, that overcome racism, that overcome sexism, that overcome homophobia, that overcome poverty, that overcome a history of abuse. I'm not saying don't be sympathetic to those people, but stop fucking celebrating those people if they don't represent us when they get to those positions, number one. And number two, stop expecting that they're going to take their lived experience and use it to in an empathetic way to be sympathetic or helpful to us. And that's that. No, I did not get my Jabos from Delancey Street. I did not. I saved up my student center, my little work study at the student center, and bought me an official pair. And I think I had gotten some birthday money from my aunt or Uncle Chris, somebody. But no, I had an authentic pair of Jabos jeans, and I literally wore those things till they collapsed. That's it, y'all. That's it. That's all I want to talk about. The light foot on our necks, and how we need to not abandon wokeness. We need to embrace wokeness, and if white people don't like wokeness, we need to use it as much as we can. Spit wokeness in their face. I'm woke, and whenever you in a public space around especially conservative, racist, or even liberal white people say I'm woke, and I only deal with woke, and tell white folks you can't be woke because you didn't go through the systematic deconstruction of your identity, your culture, your heritage. So white people can't be woke. Go find another word. You can be enlightened, you can be progressive, you can even be anarchist, but you can't be woke. That's us. Okay. They didn't sell Jabos at Marshall's. Stop it. Stop. Well, maybe they do now. But back in 92, back when I was trying to be cool, when I actually had a motivation to look cool. But anyway, now we can go into the Q&A. Let's proceed on and on to the Q&A. Now, I got through what I wanted to say in record time. So, anybody got any questions? Should I go back in the comments? Or should let's proceed forward. Are there any questions, comments, criticisms, inquiries? If you do, I'll answer to the best of my ability. If I don't know, I will say I don't know. If we got the internet machine here, maybe we can find out and discover your answers together. And please like, share, subscribe. Help a brother out. And I'm not like these other people. No, I don't care what other people think. I care so much what other people think. I care so much. So any type of displays of support, liking, comment, sharing it on your page, using my hashtag, I care what others think. I'm probably the only brother left on planet Earth that cares what other, because all y'all talking about, I don't care who, I don't give no F's. I give fucks. I give a fuck. I care what other people think. Other people's thoughts and positions and responses matter to me. So please go ahead and feel free to share. And if I got people watching, I should have people clicking like, share, and or subscribe. And if you're really feeling generous, you can become a Patreon, Cash at me, all that, to help maintain the Bro.Diallo broadcast. Especially now, I think I might have to get a new camera, because this camera is always messing with me. And I did, like, a brother, some techie nerd, because, I'm an alpha. I don't know about tech. Some techie nerd called me and was troubleshooting my camera on the phone way from Florida. And I just couldn't. Okay, here we got our first comment. Criticism. You've been bragging about the honors degree a lot lately. Well, that's all I ever got. I graduated high school. When I went to school, the white man beat me down. All my life, I had to fight academically. I went to school and I was flunked. I was put in special ed. When I graduated high school, I graduated with like a 1.3 GPA. So, at one moment, I'm like, let me see if I can do the white man's book learning. So, yeah, But beyond that, I've been a mediocre student most of my life. But I did apply myself one time. So if I wanted to. So don't offend me, because I could go to Harvard, because I know how to learn. I know how to pass the white man's test. I can go be president and put the feds on you. So don't offend me. Put the IRS. But yeah, and it was a predominantly black. I don't know if it's a HBCU, but it's from Chicago State University. So I know it's like 98% black. So. But I'll stop talking about it. I know it makes you feel insecure. I know it makes you feel lesser than. So I don't want you to feel less than. So I'm done bragging about my very minor academic achievements. What's next? Can't imagine. Oh, I was broke as hell, man. Let me tell you something. If it wasn't for them $1.25 gluten patties and because I became a vegan, and I was just, man, I'm not a big dude now, but back then, if you could have seen me back then, my nickname was Ethi, and it was nicknamed for Ethiopian because, of course, back in the 80s and 90s, people would talk about the famine in Ethiopia. So, it's inappropriate as that was. They used to call me Ethi because I was so rail thin. I was 6'3", and I was like 135 pounds. Madness, But it was fine because I wore the baggy Jabot jeans and nobody could tell how skinny I was. And yes, I would take my whole check, just like poor people do. Take my whole check and spend it on a pair of Jabot jeans for my self-esteem. But I never wore Jordans, so wherever that's worth. So yeah, I was a poor student. But shout out to Auntie Joanne. Shout out to Uncle Chris. I remember when I was a student, he would buy me a ticket. And my Uncle Chris, when I wanted to go home, I was homesick, even though I love New York. And he bought me a first-class ticket to fly home to visit my family because he was so proud of me in my first semester in college. And I made such, strives. And he was probably made a bet with somebody because my uncle's a gambling man. He probably bet somebody that I would fail. And since I didn't, he bought me a first-class ticket. And that's the first and only time I ever flew first class. I didn't even know I had a first class ticket. I was headed to the back of the plane and like my number ain't on the thing. Here I am, 18 years old. And they were like, sir, you go up front. And I flew back first time, first class. And so shout out to Uncle Chris, which inspired me. If Denzel ever makes a Christian propaganda movie about my life, he has to include that scene, how I went from the projects to college graduate. And so, yeah. Anyway, I was poor as hell, but I did fly first class, broke as hungry as hell, trying to steal peanuts. Bad grades. Y'all want to talk about your bro jeans. Y'all keep talking. I might start styling on y'all. Y'all don't want me to get back into my hip-hop fashion sense. Y'all gonna have me out there like them other old dudes that don't know how to let go. Oh yeah, shout out to Big Uncle Chris, holding it down. He's still out there. He used to listen to the show, And he was a cop. You know, he was like on the police department 30, but he was the one good cop. And Uncle Chris would listen to the Bro.Diallo broadcast before the pandemic, and I would be in the radio station, and he would call me every day. I had to ride home and listen to Uncle Chris critique my show. Anyway, okay, here we go. What are your thoughts on Kaepernick's recent tweet about wanting to return to the NFL? I think he's a goddamn fool. You know, I think he's a goddamn fool. I mean, he's prominent, and, you know, he's living the baller life without having to chase balls. And be honest with you, I think he's full of shit. I think he has to pretend like he wants to still chase balls in order to, you know, keep the attention and the limelight on himself. Because if he's not trying to play football, he's just a light-skinned cat out here just hanging out. So I think he's going to keep that whole, if I could own, because that every time he says that revives the whole debate, and it reminds us of why he doesn't play anymore. So I think it's a play to be relevant. Who the hell want to be out there crashing their bodies into other people? Like Dick Gregory said, we let our children go out onto a field and crash into each other. We don't even do that with our cars, but we do that with our children. So I think that Kaepernick, in his heart of hearts, if he's as smart as he seems, and he seems to be a pretty bright dude, he just knows he has to pretend like he still wants to chase balls, or else he might have to get a real job. All right, Francesca, thank you. What is your take on QAnon slowly becoming a viable bloc in the Republican Party, and how can we fight it? Because I think they theories is spilling into the black community. First of all, QAnon is nothing but a rebranding of the Tea Party. The Tea Party is nothing but a rebranding of the John Birch Society. The John Birch Society is nothing but a rebranding of the Citizens Council. The Citizens Council is nothing but a rebranding of the White Citizens Council. The White Citizens Council is nothing but a rebranding of the Ku Klux Klan. You feel me? White people have always had these groups. They just rename them. The groups are so fucking hypocritical. So every time white people form these racist political groups, they get exposed. They immediately start losing legitimacy. Like QAnon, one of the things is Pizzagate, and these secret pedophile rings that drink children's adrenal glands and all that shit. But then we find out all this sex abuse that is happening amongst the leaders of the QAnon movement, and they do nothing about it. So what happens is every couple of elections, most of these groupings don't last more than 2 election cycles because they become so corrupt, and then when the money starts flowing in, they start to fracture. So white people have always had racist groups. QAnon is nothing but the Tea Party, and there's going to be a new group that comes. So that's the first thing. They're never going to go away until we overthrow the systems and institutions of white domination, because the white elites, the educated white people, need these uneducated white, violent white people on the lower rungs of the hierarchy in order to preserve. Fascism is the immune system of capitalism. The white elites exploit everybody, white workers and black workers. They exploit everything from polar bears to beluga whales. Everything gets hyper exploited by the few 1% capitalists at the top. And so when white people are like, God damn it, I can't afford my double wide trailer. So what they do is they need these movements to deflect and scapegoat. So every time white people Tea Party, when the Tea Party formed under Obama, they were like, it's the immigrants. So they need these groups. They need these right-wing groups as number one, to be the immune system to target not vulnerable populations, minorities, and other groups, people on the outside fringes of society, to target them and blame them for the problems caused by the capitalist elite. And number two, as an outlet in social grouping. So if you don't like QAnon, just wait a few years and they're going to rebrand to something else. The Patriot Party, they're going to rebrand to some other dumb shit. As far as and they always are replete with conspiracies. They have to go with conspiracies because if they looked at facts, they would have no legitimacy. If the QAnon people said, well, what is the source of corruption in the system? Who are the abusers? Who are the predators? They'd be looking in the mirror. So they always have to come up with these crazy ideas about who's in control. They have to come up with these crazy ideas about communism that have no grounding in reality and no facts to support them, because if they dealt with facts don't support racism. Facts don't support white hegemony. Facts don't support their very identity. The very concept of whiteness is absurd. So they're always going to be here until the system itself go. They are a part of the system. You know, they are the immune system. So they won't die until the body dies. As far as they infecting the black community, again, that has always been the case. Back when white people were talking about the Illuminati, one world government in the 90s, it was, if you were in the black cultural community, books like Behold a Pale Horse, The Unseen Hand, The Conspirators Hierarchy, all these conspiratorial books. I have all those books on my shelf, and I bought them all from other black people. I got them all. You go to a black conscious bookstore right now, you're going to see all these books, and all those people, Ralph Epperson, Dr. John Coleman, they always going to be there. So there have always been. Let me just show you an image. Let me show you an image. I'm talking about they leak. They're not just leaking. The black people adopting white people's conspiratorial delusions did not start with oh, was the internet scrubbed? It used to be stuff just so readily. Oh, here it is. I have to go to the website. It didn't start. Black people have been embracing white folks' delusions and white folks' racist delusions since white folks started having racist delusions. So here I'm just you go to the Nation of Islam website, and here's the minister. And who is the minister talking to, you might ask? Let me just show you who he's talking to. Let's advance a little bit. My computer's janky as hell. He's talking to Alex Jones. Oh, sorry. Went a little far. He's having an interview with Alex Jones. This is on the Nation of Islam website. Where? See Farrakhan taking up the whole day. Oops, sorry. Let's put that back. Dang, did he give Alex Jones a chance to talk? Anyway, this is Farrakhan. You go to the Nation of Islam website and you look at Farrakhan interviewed in the candid, it says in a candid, informative session, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan sat down with an interview and dialogue with Alex Jones of InfoWars. And so this is not new. This is nothing new. Black people, especially black leaders, especially black cult leaders, have trafficked in white lies since at least going back to the 70s. There's another fallacious book, another forged book called The Learned, what's that book? The Elders of Zion. And if you know anything about Alex Jones is a racist. Alex Jones said that Trayvon Martin was a Illuminati Masonic sacrifice. That Trayvon, and this, he interviewed and Alex Jones has denied racism. Alex Jones has said that black people that support the New World Order and he's pro-colonialism and white power. You know, if you know anything about Alex Jones, this is nothing new. Alex Jones has been at this since the early 90s. Farrakhan has united with right-wing conservative Sun Young Moon and all this. So it's none of this is new. It might be access to this information might be consumed differently. When I was young, you had to go to the bookstores, you had to get the pamphlets, you had to kind of be there. But now you can sit and look at your phone or sit at your computer and get this bullshit. But everything you're talking about, it's just a rebranding of shit that's always been here. And how are you going to be a black militant leader that want to take down the Caucasus Mountain cave dwelling devil, and you're sitting across from one of the most racist, overtly racist white men having a polite conversation? because main reason is Farrakhan wants access to Alex Jones support group and vice versa. So I'm sorry to tell you, Andy, this ain't nothing new. They just rebranded it. I Manifesto say QAnon is still a thing. It's going to be a thing. It's going to rebrand. That's like saying you don't hear about the Tea Party anymore. You don't hear about the Citizens Council anymore. So that's how that go. I wish I had a better answer for you, but that's the truth. Okay. How did you manage to maintain your iron levels on a vegan diet in a sustainable way? Well, first of all, I never had any issues with iron, but the bioavailable iron mostly comes from meat. I've never had to like take supplements or anything of that nature. I just ate a diverse diet. I ate a very diverse diet with a lot of raw greens, like a deep greens. I would juice infrequently. I don't juice very much. I used to be heavily into juicing, but I've never had to do anything special. I know my wife has struggled with anemia when she first became vegan, but she said that when she first became vegan, before she met me, when she went off of meat, and she said she had always had anemia, but when she became a vegetarian vegan, she had very severe anemia. This before I came and lifted her up and changed her life. But when she became a vegan, her doctor was like, told her you have to eat meat to be meat. And so she went back to eating, I think she said she ate fish and maybe dairy. She didn't go back to eating red meat, but she went back to eating, I think, fish and dairy. But then she became a vegan again because she didn't like consuming the excretions and flesh of animals. So she went back again, and this time she had like a large component of raw food in her diet, pine nuts, unprocessed and raw foods. And we had joined, I had been a member since 92, but my wife joined the Park Slope Food Co-op, I think in the year 2000. The year 2000, she joined the Park Slope Food Co-op, and then we had access. So I would say, barring any type of innate condition, like if you do have some type of medical condition, you have to seek treatment from a professional. But if it's simply about getting enough iron in your diet, without barring any other type of physiological or medical condition, you just have to eat a very wide-ranging diet. Go to the vegetable and fruit section and get ones. Get your bok choy, get your, of course, the various types. There's like thousands of lettuce. Red leaf lettuce, green leaf lettuce, and romaine lettuce. Get your leafy greens, your leeks, and eat a wide diet, a very wide, varied diet of food. And when you prepare the food, sometimes try to mix in a good portion. At least 25 to 30% of your food can be raw and uncooked prepared salad. I don't really rock with a full raw diet. I was a raw vegan for a few years, and it just really didn't fit with trying to find. It was very hard to navigate society. The reason I stopped being a raw vegan is because my whole life came about prepping and preparing food, securing food. Because if you're eating a raw diet, you can't really like buy you have to buy food almost daily. You have to be constantly, sprouting beans and soaking grains, and it's just too much. So, but I always my wife will make for lunch a big pear pecan salad, a big raw salad. And, because, you want to get your iron really comes from plants. The animals that you eat that are full of iron, the red meat, where do they get their iron from? They eat grains and plants, or at least they're supposed to be eating grains and plants. So, if, like I said, barring any of that, I would say that was the first approach. Make sure your vegan diet is wide-ranging, organic, fresh fruits and vegetables with a right away. I know a lot of people become vegan and they just find one lettuce that they like, or one type of tomato, one type of thing they like, and they just buy that all the time. Make sure your diet is very diverse. Your vegan diet is a diverse plant-based diet, and that should definitely begin to help with that. Let me know how it goes. Prester, our QAnon is a U.S. intelligence psyop to discredit real life conspiracies. Okay, if you say so. I guess. But when we look at the funding of QAnon, it comes from the private sector, not the government. The Koch brothers and ALEC and the Heritage Foundation have a lot more to do. NGOs and private corporations, I think, have a lot more to do with the creation and sustaining of QAnon than any U.S. intelligence agencies. That's what my research has told me. I'm not vegan. I just veg a lot. Is that like a play on big pun? Okay. Shout out to everybody giving Sister Francesca some insights on her vegan diet. It's like the interpretations. Okay. What's your take on Pfizer being the chief sponsor of this year's Oscars in order to produce their new? I don't know about that. I've heard people say that. I mean, if they do that, then goddamn, that's called synergy. Like, if they that fucking cold-blooded, I might buy it. Shit, because that's cold-blooded. If they're producing it, they were able to orchestrate that whole shit just to sell. I mean, I don't know why they would have to go through that fucking much. I mean, they have a marketing department, and their standard marketing is extremely successful. And there is currently no cure for alopecia. So if they did have a drug in the pipeline for FDA approval for alopecia drugs, they wouldn't have to stage an event of like that to bring alopecia into the headlines, because literally people would knock down their fucking door. That would be like Viagra and shit. That would be like when before they came out with Viagra, they had somebody whip out their penis on the Oscar stage. That doesn't make sense. And I don't have no doubt that these corporations are evil as fuck, but they're also quite rational. And if I was the evil head of Pfizer, the evil Pfizer CEO, and one of my scientists came to me and said, there's an alopecia drug in the pipeline, I'd be like, that shit would sell itself, because it is quite, it's a ravaging thing, It's, stress alopecia. And I know a few people who struggle with alopecia. I know some people who had alopecia, and one guy I went to school with, he had alopecia, but he had it since he was a young kid, and he could care less. Like hair, people with hair looked weird to him because he didn't have any. And there's this one comedian named Norman. He has alopecia, and he's like a world-renowned supermodel, and he makes comedy, and he's very well adjusted, and so there are some people that have alopecia, that I don't think would take the drug, but I think, like I said, that would be a gold mine. That would be a gold drug, because the reality is, if you look up alopecia, they don't even fully know what causes it. They know that it's an autoimmune disease, but they don't know where the spark is, and they're still trying to do genetic screening and trying to find out what provokes the disease. So it's really weird when they don't have a diagnosis, when they don't have a full comprehension of what causes it to cure it. But if they have a cure, I just don't believe it. I would need more than just the coincidence of we're coming. And I don't even know that they're coming out with an alopecia treatment. I know there are treatments for it, but they aren't cures. They don't have a cure for it. So I'm saying all that to say is I don't buy it. But if it makes you feel good, if it makes you feel brilliant, if it makes you feel like you're pulling back the cover on the Wizard of Oz and exposing it, then run with that. But it just wouldn't make sense to me. Like, why the fuck are you doing that? Because, if you have a cure for baldness, you don't have to do a conspiracy to get the word out. I mean, you just say, we watch pharmaceutical commercials, and They're making record profits. Why would they use this form of advertisement as opposed to any grander? It just don't make sense to me. That's my thought. But I could be dead ass wrong, and the world clearly could be run by a cabal of supervillains who eat babies' adrenal glands and all that fucking Bohemian Grove shit. I could be totally wrong. We could be governed by reptiles, and I just think it's just greedy fucking powerful white men who aren't reptiles, who are mammalian. We're run by evil mammals, not reptiles. Okay. More advice on how to deal with anemia. There's a slew of alopecia ads. I can understand alopecia trending, but again, any pharmaceutical company that comes up with a treatment for alopecia will make billions of dollars because they would have the market cornered, and they could get a intellectual property. I mean, if they do have it, then go buy some stock in Pfizer, because that's, like I said, go buy stock in Pfizer, because if they got that, then, but it just wouldn't make sense to me that the slap would be the way to go. I think if somebody in Pfizer marketing orchestrated the slap to sell that's like saying, what if the crack industry got Whitney Houston addicted to crack in order to sell crack? Like, that's a thing that sells itself. You don't have to go through all these complex conspiracy to sell a drug that people actually want. There's a demand for the drug already before it exists. Why would you have to do that? And people without alopecia are not going to care either way. So even if they want to bring alopecia into the consciousness of people who don't know about alopecia, if you don't know about alopecia, it is either because you don't have it and no one close to you has it. So I'm not in their market. So why would they want to bring alopecia into my consciousness? I mean, if you believe in this high, just only focus on the conspiracies that matter, because telling these conspiracies just makes you lose legitimacy when you come with some real conspiracy shit. It just doesn't make sense. And if it don't make dollars, then it don't make sense. Go on somewhere with that. Oh, yes. Kwabena, now you want to bring me down. As if genocidal policing isn't enough. The Kroger ice shelf in Antarctica broke off recently. Why should we be concerned about these changes that seem to be happening pretty frequently lately? Because I say this all the time. The life-sustaining capacity of the earth is being diminished, and if not destroyed. So yes, in the same week that the damn ice shelf broke, the permafrost that's supposed to be fucking permanent, you want to talk about Russia in the Russian wilderness, they got these methane vents, fucking mammoth farts that were frozen in the ice are now being emitted, destroying the protective layer and having more concentration of greenhouse gases. The goddamn released a report that the third largest coral reef off the coast of Australia and New Zealand is being bleached and dying off. Coral reefs are the most diverse. You think we all know about the Amazonian rainforest? The forest under the ocean are vaster and more biodiverse than the Amazon, or any forest on land. And the majority of our oxygen doesn't come from trees above ground. It comes from phytoplankton, aquatic plants. We could literally all fucking suffocate. So yeah, the world is dying. And I can't get black folks to organize to dismantle the systems and institutions of capitalism. For every black person that's willing to organize against capitalism and hyper exploitation of the planet's ecosystem, there's a million other black people with more resources and more talent and more discipline, apparently, that are organizing to participate in this omnicidal system. Why am I not bringing down the vibes? Yeah, it was the size of Rome. It's one of the biggest. Yeah, they've been watching it for months. They knew it was going to break off. And Prester John wants me to believe that Pfizer orchestrated the slap. Okay, fine. Okay, I guess if Pfizer did that, that means the Illuminati, that means the white elites got so much fucking time on their hands. That means they got to be like, look, we don't even have no resistance. We got shit on lock that we can just do foo-foo lame shit that we doing shit we ain't got to do just to flex. That was a flex, if it's true. To me, it's absurd. I don't believe it because it's absurd. I don't even need evidence. There's no evidence that it's connected. It's all circumstantial, anecdotal. But beyond that, it's just an absurd thing to do. It just doesn't make sense. And most of the things that white people, most of the evil things, I can understand it. I don't agree with it. It's sometimes insane, but I understand it. Like, it's insane to fucking manufacture nuclear weapons. It's insane to manufacture enough nuclear weapons to destroy the world 250 times over. But I understand why they do it. I understand their insane racist logic. I understand why they put the resources into it. And I understand what they intend to get out of doing that kind of shit. This I don't understand. So you deeper than me, Prester John. All right, here we go. Where we at? Time. We got 3 minutes. I'm gonna try to. I ain't got that many questions left anyway. So, okay. A major difference I noticed between you and your guest from last week has how much power we think an individual has over reality. How do we bridge the hyper individualistic gap between our people? The only way to stop individualism is for us to demonstrate to our community that communalism is more viable. The people who do not support individualism have to pull our time, talent, and resources and create local communities, local enclaves, and groupings, organizations that demonstrate. The proof is in the pudding. If the community saw the children, the loved ones, the property, the holdings and housings and businesses thriving, they would begin to warm up to our way of being. And we would also have to because it's not enough for us to simply organize and do this successfully. We have to do it in a resilient way, a way that is already prepared for the backlash and the subversion of white people, how to counter white people. That's the only way to do it, because we can write about it, we can theorize about it, we can research it, which we need to do in order to execute it properly. We have to research it, but we got to execute. And a lot of times, even if we fail at it, our people can appreciate the attempt. So if we start to live out, if we can localize and do socialism and communalism on a community level, only if it's a small, if you got 4 or 5 friends and you come together on a communal collective, that's it. Because this individualism, people are suffering, and that's why they promote it so heavily. Individualism has one of the most aggressive marketing schemes. These people out here like, oh, I grind. Wake up and grind. Fucking Steve Harvey telling black people we can't sleep if we want to be successful. What the fuck is that? People die from lack of sleep. Literally, your body, your organs start to shut the fuck down if you don't sleep. If your circadian, like your intellectual capacity gets reduced if you don't sleep. How do I know? Because I am fucking sleep deprived. Hopefully I can get some rest this weekend. So, we bridge the hyper-individualism gap by the few of us who are aware that it is a problem and are aware that it needs to be addressed, start to exercise. And the fewer of us that it is, that means the more intense we need to be committed. It is a quality, not quantity issues. If we have a small number of African people living out African ideology and executing Pan-African agendas, that will go much further than 1,000,001 hashtag goal black millionaire, black billionaires. We can beat them if we just start to live out our ideas and embody our ideas. If there's any other way, somebody else can chime in and let me know, because that's the only way I know. All right, speed round. I'm just blaze through these. People are talking about it, so it's a trending interest search engines work. I guess. Okay, that's you and you trying to. You better stop talking to Prester John. Put your aluminum, your damn tinfoil hat on if you're gonna go back and forth with Prester. See deep. He mad deep, yo. That last live was fire. Oops. That last live was fire. Thank you. Thank you. Like I said, like God eats praise, I eat compliments. So I think I'll end on that. Because yes, I'm 1 minute over. Thank you, everyone. Let me just put up the appeal for support going across the bottom of your screen, the various ways you can show support for the BroDiallo broadcast. If you don't have the means to monetarily support my efforts over here, the one-man band of the BroDiallo broadcast, please like, share, subscribe, share it with your friends, allies, enemies, ancestors, and descendants. Please. And beyond that, I sure enough appreciate y'all. BroDiallo radio broadcast is coming back. I'll give y'all updates when I learn. Go to African World Order. You can also support and walk away with some nice things. African World Order apparel, AfricanWorldOrder.com. Get out there and look fly. Aesthetics of liberation. And I think that's it. That's it. So good night, everyone. And thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time and your input and your interactions. And I will see y'all. Wait, before I go, I always say goodbye too fast. Where is it? Oh, what do I do with it? Hey, look at this. Somebody come look at this. Here's a book. I didn't even know this was here. This is the book I was talking about. And one of my favorite chapters in this book. And this book, even though it's a hefty book, you can read it one chapter. Like the chapters are self-contained. So if you read it, like if you're like, I ain't about to sit and read all the stuff this white man wrote, that's fine. You can read like each chapter is self-contained from the different eras is written, so that you could just read the one chapter and put it down if you ain't about to go through all this white folks business. But this is the chapter I was telling you about. It's like the intimately oppressed. And again, there are some womanism. But anyway, let me not get into that. I said I was leaving. I was looking for my new book report book. And I'm kind of torn. Where is it? I got to do a report on the damn book. I don't know what I did with it. It doesn't matter. I already read the book and got the notes. What the hell did I do with it? Well, I'm a typical man. I can't find what I'm looking for. So I'm about to go into the living room and blame everybody else for messing with my stuff. Because my wife thinks she's slick. She put the printer by my desk. So everybody uses this printer. My son, who's in college, I got another son in middle school, and my wife, everybody comes to my desk. And she got all that space over there, and she fills it up with house plants. And she's like, I put the printer over there. And so now every time I come here, my desk is in disarray. As if y'all want to hear that. Good night. I've taken up enough of y'all time. I don't know. I wanted to show y'all the book I was doing for the book review. But I don't see it. I ain't about to go look for it. Anyway, the book that I'm doing a book review is the next book review that's coming out in the next few days is called The Community of Self by Dr. Naeem Akbar. So that's the book. You can go see the previous book, Who Stole the Soul, and my interview with the author. And that's that. So good night, y'all.